meeting to order. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on October 27th, 2020, the committee is resuming its study on supports and services to veterans, caregivers, and families. Welcome to all of the witnesses who have taken the time to join us today. I'll introduce you all here at once, and then we'll get started right into opening remarks. Excuse me. From the Caregivers Brigade, we have Marie-Andre Mallet, Director of Veterans Families. We also are joined by Janet McLeod, Director of Community Education, and Paula Ramsey, Director of Serving Families. Welcome to you all. From Caregiving Matters, we're joined by Mary Bart, the Chair, and appearing both as individuals, we have Captain Navy Retired Mr. Gus Cameron, Canadian Armed Forces, as well as Mr. Richard Lavallee. And I apologize profusely to all of you. My ability to pronounce is not one of my strong points, but we're going to give each witness, each organization or individual an opportunity to have 5 minutes of opening remarks, and then we'll proceed with rounds of questions. So to start us off is the Caregivers Brigade. I believe is it Marie-Andre that's gonna start us off? If so, the next 5 minutes are all yours.
Well, we're actually going to share our time because we're
Perfect.
three to present ourselves. My name is Marie-Andre. I am a registered nurse by trade. I am the spouse of a veteran who sustained some injuries, physical and psychiatric injuries. We together, we just started Caregivers Brigade back in 2013 to offer some support online to other spouses like us that struggled with finding solutions to our everyday lives. I'm just going to let my other colleagues present themselves.
Good afternoon. My name is Janet McLeod. I am the spouse as well of a caregiver of a veteran. I'm the director of the community education with the Caregivers Brigade. I help to promote a better understanding of PTSD and physical injuries in the community to local college students, as well as local hospitals, by bringing education faced by veterans if the caregiver becomes ill. I also am a volunteer with Vets Canada and help to assist any veterans who may be struggling in the community. And I will now pass it over to my colleague.
Hi, I'm Paula Ramsey. I'm, as I was introduced by the chair, I'm the director for Serving Families. So part of my job within the Caregivers Brigade is to focus on D&D policies and transition from service. We all work really hard together to try to help other families like ours to find the services that they need. And so our website that we launched in 2014 has about a little over 140 Canadian accessible resources. And that's it for my time. Thank you.
Was that it? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt because you do have some more time left. But if that was all, we'll continue. Okay. From Caregiving Matters, I would invite Mary Bart, who is the chair. Minutes are all yours. Oh, Mary, I'm sorry, your mute is still on there.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here and part of this meeting. My dad was a vet, as were most of my aunts and uncles, and I still have one uncle who is happily living in the Pearly in Ottawa. So this topic is near and dear to my heart. I am chair of a registered charity called Caregiving Matters, We were founded in 2008, and we're a little bit different. We are an internet-based charity. Our mission is to offer education and support to family caregivers. So everything we do is virtual, and on our website, you will find literally dozens and dozens and dozens of topics that relate to family caregivers, everything from caregiving to elder abuse to estate planning to power of attorney. We have a wide range of topics, and I'll be happy to share my thoughts as we go through this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You guys are all being very succinct, which the MPs really appreciate. It gives them more time to ask questions, which is great.
Monsieur le Président, je m'excuse.
Mr. Chair, my apologies, says Mr. Desilets. Mr. Chair, my apologies. We were not able to hear Ms. Bart in French because there was a problem with interpretation. There was a sound problem, so I don't know if it would be possible to rehear Ms. Bart.
One problem in English as well, and I was just actually speaking with the clerk quickly about whether or not they had a headset sent out. So I'm not sure if maybe the clerk can ask to do another sound check with Miss Barton, she can repeat. But no, I agree, Monsieur, that the sound was not great in either language. Miss Bart, can you try again there? Just maybe
sure. Gladly. It worked a minute ago, so I would. Can you hear me? This is.
I can, but it's very.
I'm muted up here somehow.
No, we can hear you.
Okay.
It's just that the quality of the sound is really poor.
Great.
So I don't know if maybe, I don't know if maybe it's an adjustment issue. I don't know if maybe the clerk can advise.
It was working a minute ago.
Okay, the clerk's just going to take you through another sound check here.
Okay, great.
Hi there, Ms. Bart. So we'll just need a few sentences and we can adjust if need be.
Great. I'll start talking and hopefully this gets worked out. I don't mean to slow the group down, but if you can't hear me, then that's not of value either. Is this better? Hello?
No, it's still a bit choppy here.
Oh, dear.
Could you unplug and replug your headset, Ms. Bart?
Yes. How's that?
Okay, we can try a few sentences.
Okay, I'll keep talking just to see if it works better. It's nice and sunny where I am, so I hope everybody is able to hear me now. Yes, no?
We can hear you. It's just there's a disruption in the sound. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Chair, I think if she brings the microphone down just a little bit, because it might be that popping.
Might be too close.
Too close, right? Just sort of.
Okay, I lowered it when we started. I was told to put it higher, so I've put it lower. Does that help now? Yes.
I think what we're going to do, Miss Bart, if you don't mind, we're gonna skip you and we're going to get IT to give you a call directly, and we'll go on with the other opening remarks, and hopefully we can get it figured out before too long. Okay.
Okay. Well, just a minute. Give me a second. I have to go turn the phone back on because I've turned it off. So give me a second if they're going to call me.
Not a problem. Thank you. And my appreciation, Mr. Desilets, for making that point. We want to make sure everybody can be heard properly. So we're going to move on now to appearing as an individual, Captain Navy retired, Mr. Cameron, Canadian Armed Forces. The next 5 minutes are all yours, sir.
Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. I have to correct you on the rank thing. That's my profession now that I'm out of the Navy. I'm a boat captain. I never got to the high rank of a naval captain. So just to straighten that up. What I guess my whole purpose is I love our veterans. I spent 26 years in the Navy, and when I see inconsistency or wrongs, things that are not proper with regards to our senior veterans, mostly in long-term care, but that's not always the case. I have to step forward. These heroes sometimes don't have a voice. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to bother anybody. They're happy with what they got. And when it's not correct, I have no problem speaking for them. So that's my thing. That's what I like to do. I am in a little bit of a correspondence with a couple of big corporations about empathy and compassion towards our veterans, and that's what I'm working on at the moment. And I thank you for the invitation and appreciate joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And up next, we have Mr. Richard Lavallee. The next 5 minutes are all yours, sir.
Bonjour, merci. Moi, j'étais un vétéran qui a fait
I'm a veteran who's had 2 rotations in Germany, 5.5 years of my life in Germany on various assignments and missions. And if I'm joining you today, it's because I hooked up with the 22nd Regiment vets. We decided a few years ago to come to the help of the Vandus, who are having vets from the Vandus, who are having a lot of problem getting access to the system for help, psychiatric help, medical help, financial help, sorting out pension problems. They're having quite a bit of difficulty integrating into the system. There are gaps in the system, shortcomings, and what happens is they give up. They give up all hope, and they end up being on the street in Montreal. I meet a lot of veterans. I'm a pedestrian in Montreal, and they don't know what to do. In some cases, they have no idea what their entitlements are, and so we decided to get together and to help them out. On the 21st of February last, I went and had a dinner with some vets, some homeless vets. 50-ish or more showed up. And we had a few kiosks, information kiosks. We had one veteran who's been referred to the proper assistance. We have a desperate need in Montreal to get organized and to have access. So we've managed to speak on their behalf and speak up for those who don't get any help. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. Just checking in with the clerk to see if we have had any luck with Mrs. Bart. Not as of yet. Okay. I have Rachel with her hand up. Rachel, do you have a point here?
Hi, Chair. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask the clerk if they could fix it. The staff are having a hard time. They're only seeing one the speaker and not the whole group. So if we could get that fixed for our staff, that would be great.
Sorry.
The clerk knows what to do.
Oh,
the staff can't see it. The whole page. They can only see the speaker. So
I see. Okay, I see what you're saying.
That.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Chair.
No problem. I'll leave that for the clerk and the technicians. Anything technical, I'm probably not the person to ask. He said that he will look into that. I'm going to suggest we move forward unless the clerk can maybe advise if Mrs. Bart's technical issues are imminent in being fixed, or whether or not they're having some difficulty. I appreciate everybody's patience. Oh, we have Miss Bart back. Let's hopefully hope we can hear her.
I tried. Did it work?
Let's hear a couple sentences. Maybe.
Okay, I'm still trying. I apologize. I don't know what went wrong. Technology is not my friend today.
That's a little better. I don't know if it's better on everybody else's ear, but maybe the interpreters can advise whether it was good enough. Can you try maybe a few more sentences, Mr. Bart?
Sure, absolutely. I was telling you that my dad and most of my aunts were veterans, and I have an uncle who still lives in the Pearly. My aunt used to live there until she died. So I'm honored to be part of this meeting today. Does that help?
I would ask the clerk if he can check with the interpreters if whether or not that was
unfortunately
better, or
the sound is not the quality is not quite there for the interpreters right now.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Bart. I have to stick with my own expectations as well. I really wish we could have you continue, but maybe we can schedule you for an upcoming meeting if that is going to work. I'll check in with the clerk after, but if we can't have both languages represented, we can't have you on the meeting, I'm afraid.
Okay, if it could get, if I can contribute some other way.
Well, let's we'll
this
circle
is too
back.
bad. I put a lot of work into this, so that's too bad.
And I appreciate that. I think what we'll do is we'll circle back with you to see if we can figure out technically what the issue might be, and have you in a future meeting, or maybe a written submission. We'll discuss this further.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Bye bye.
Thank you. I apologize, folks. That's unfortunately the way it goes with technology sometimes. But I assure the committee that we will make sure that Mrs. Bart's voice is heard in terms of her contribution. Moving forward, we have the first round of questions. This is our. Monsieur Deslay.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering, perhaps we've lost about 30 minutes with the votes and so on. Would it be possible that we tack it on to the end of this meeting? Our Monday committee meetings are always plagued by this votes.
I have to get back to you. I think we can usually squeeze out a few extra minutes. Whether we can add another full hour or half an hour, I think might be pushing it. But let me check with the appropriate services, and I'll report back. But we'll get started, and we'll see how long we can go. Okay.
Merci.
Thank you. Okay. So up first with questions for 6 minutes, MP Wagenthal, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. Here we go. Finally, this particular study is all about support services to veterans, caregivers, and their families. And so I would like to focus my questions on the caregiver brigade, since unfortunately we've lost the availability of the other witness. But I would like to ask Marie-Andre, if you could share a little bit in regards to specific programs like Caregivers Recognition Benefit and the VIP, and the imbalance that you experience in regards to its availability for those with mental injuries versus those with physical injuries.
Thank you for your question. My husband sustained mental injuries from his service. I do perform at home all the instrumental activities of daily living, but my husband is able to perform the activities of daily living. And the difference between the both of them is that he's able to dress himself, feed himself, bathe himself on his own. But everything that turns around everyday life, such as cooking a meal, getting groceries, doing laundry, he's not able to do on his own. The caregiver recognition benefit was made to recognize caregivers who perform activities of daily living. Therefore, they are made to compensate for women or caregivers who help people bathe, dress, and feed themselves. Now, I did apply initially for that recognition benefit because when we did receive the initial information, it was any caregiver that helped with example, and that was written on one of the pamphlets that we actually received, errands for a veteran. We were eligible for that. And we got denied. The only reason why was that my husband didn't fit criteria, and the letter that I received was, thank you for caring for a veteran, but according to our criterias, you are not a caregiver.
Right. So we have a problem then with the criterias and some subjectivity in regards to that.
Mental health being something that you will rarely see people themselves and bathe or physically dress. And so it was made for people who are unable to do anything physically, but it wasn't made, that benefit wasn't made for people with mental issues. It is known that for people who have mental issues, they want them to participate in IADLs, but sometimes it's just not feasible.
Right. You gave me the example of even going out and mowing the lawn, that you would think that would be a good activity to take part in because you're outdoors, you're moving, it's exercise. And yet for your husband, that is an issue. And why would that be? Just briefly, because I do have a couple more questions, but it's important.
Mowing the lawn for a veteran who went to Afghanistan, well, the sand, the noise, the sound of the smell of gasoline will actually trigger him to have panic attacks. And it will trigger his hypervigilance. Therefore, he can mow the lawn physically, but he'll be stuck on the couch for a week or so for coming down from all this anxiety that it will trigger.
Okay.
So
thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to ask, I think it was Jeanette, you mentioned one of your responsibilities was dealing with circumstances for caregivers when a caregiver gets ill. And that kind of raised a red flag for me. What are you speaking of there? Just briefly, but succinctly, so that we can ask a number of other questions as well. But that, I wondered about that, if you could share.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your question. So that is based on a personal experience that I faced. And that was roughly 4 years ago when I suffered a stroke. Okay. So I suffered a stroke, and my husband faced several difficulties for himself. And they were like meal prep, medication, due to I was always have been the primary caregiver for him.
Okay. And now you weren't able to assist him. So what happened?
So at that time when I was unable to assist him, he had to go and ask for some assistance and say, I am a grown man and I can not cook for myself. And there was, he couldn't care for himself.
So did he get support? What happened?
So at that time, we did get some support. My husband was provided 7 meals for 7 days a week. That's only 7 meals. Okay, and that was provided only to the veteran.
So when we talk about when the veteran serves, the family serves, and the caregiver has suffered a stroke, there was no care for the family then and minimal care for the veteran if you're getting 1 meal per day.
Yes, because what happened is my husband had to take the 7 meals and so that he could help care for, because he became the caregiver. So the role reversed and he had to take his meals and share them with his spouse, myself, so that I could be fed as well due to restrictions that I was given with the stroke and not being able to use stoves and etc.
All right, thank you. Chair, do I have a little time left?
I'm afraid not. I let you go. You're a little over time. Next
you're so
round.
kind. Thank you.
Up next, MP Fillmore for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to all of the folks who have joined us today to share their experiences with us. It's wonderful of you to share those experiences and your time with us. I want to start with a question to Gus Cameron. Gus, you and I are known to each other quite well, and you do and have for years done incredible work in the Halifax area with the very large and vibrant veterans community here in Halifax. You've used your voice to help to get veterans into hospital beds. You used your efforts to get groceries to seniors during the pandemic. Valentines for vets, mental health, just being there for people who, when they needed someone to be there. You've been through it all. Now, what the committee is studying today is different from what we usually study. Often we're studying the challenges that veterans themselves are facing and the barriers that they're experiencing to get the help that they need. But today we're really talking about people like you and the other guests that are with us today, the people that are helping veterans. So I know it's hard for you to not think about the veterans and think about yourself, but I'm going to ask you to think about yourself in your role as a helper today. And the first question I wanted to ask you was, what can you tell us about what it is like to be a caregiver? What is it? What are the burdens? What is the drain on you? What is the hardship? And what can we do better to support someone who's doing work like you do to help the veterans?
You're on mute there, sir.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for reaching out. It's exciting to have an idea and to see it help a veteran or get a policy changed or see the veteran living day to day in a better way because of maybe me or a group of us speaking out and bringing in the situation to awareness of our policy and rule makers at the high level. Sometimes these elected folks don't get to see firsthand what's going on at the grassroots level. And I have no trouble bringing it to those people when it needs to. I enjoy being a voice for a 99-year-old or an 89-year-old. My best friends are in their 90s, and it's so hard because you know what happens when you get in your 90s. I've had 2, 3, 4 devastating losses in the last year with friends of mine that became very, very close. Heroes. And so it drives me to keep going for these people. The latest win was not separating vets and their spouses anymore. And I know I tried to get that to happen while the vet was still living. My good friend David, the veteran, is passed January a year ago. And I know he's smiling down now, knowing that veterans will not be separated from their spouses because of different levels of care. And that's my thing. I don't know if that answered your question, Andy, or not.
It did, Gus. Thank you. If there was something that that the Department of Veterans Affairs Canada could do to help you in your work, if there was some program or support that we could do to help you, not the veteran, but help you to help the veteran, is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, there is. I think it's a little bit of an obstacle course trying to get your voice heard or trying to get your question or your suggestion to the right person. Now I'm sort of dealing with Bell Canada right now with their rates that they're charging veterans, and trying to get the top guy's ear is very, very difficult. I could barely get by the sales representatives here in Halifax. I've tried. I do have the email, the CEO. They keep putting me off on local people that are trying to solve the problem, but it's not really a local problem. It's a Canada problem. But if I had an avenue, I think maybe this committee is an avenue to bring suggestions and ideas to make it better for veterans. Maybe this is what I need. I don't need a direct route or a direct name or phone number. We just need a direct way to bring our case, our problems, our situations to the policy changers, to the people that can make a difference.
Okay, thanks for that, Gus. I really appreciate that. And Chair, do I have another moment? Okay,
1 minute.
Quickly to Ms. Mallette, if I could. Ms. Mallette, thank you for sharing your experience. Now, as it stands, there are a variety of mental health benefits available to veterans that are not extended to their caregivers. I wonder if you could just, in the minute that we have, speak to us about why it's important for the veterans' well-being that their family and caregivers' well-being is also taken care of.
I'm afraid it's a lot less than a minute, but please, a brief answer would be great.
When the entire family, when the entire unit is doing good, then I think there's, the veteran does good also. But if we're all dragging behind him, it's just not helpful.
Thank you.
Sum it up.
Good, succinct answer. Thank you very much.
Now, just before we move on to the next questioner, I just wanted to let folks know we did get notice that we can extend, but only for a very short period of time. I would say pushing it to about 20-25 minutes would be maximum in terms of being able to extend if the committee so chooses at the end. So up next, MP Desilets.
Monsieur le Président.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
It's sorry, the next 6 minutes are all yours, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I would like to highlight women, so our women MPs and our women participants. So happy International Women's Day. And thank you to our witnesses. They are heroes. They are involved. They are a source of inspiration, and they are an inspiration to me. My first question goes to Mr. Lavallée. Mr. Lavallée, your experience really speaks to me, and I saw a 10-minute long video that was about what you did on February 21st. That video was very impressive for me. I was very happy to see the collaboration and the solidarity that your group has. So I would like to congratulate you for that. Here's my question. I think that there is a link between the challenges that veterans and their families are facing when they're trying to access services, because sometimes veterans have issues within their own families due to the lack of services. So do you think that there is a link between both things? Well, I think you're right. There are different ways of facing challenges when you're trying to access services. 3/4 of services need to be given through Ottawa, and oftentimes it's through Anglophones. When I reach out to people who are facing challenges, sometimes they are Francophones. And when people are facing difficulties and they're already having a hard time, when they have to find that help in a language that they do not speak or that they do not handle well, this is how they end up on the street. Also, veterans don't always know all the services that they can have access to. Sometimes they have problems with technology, sometimes they have mental health issues, sometimes they have PTSD. There's a psychologist who said that PTSD could be due to rape. It could be a young person who experienced something when they were young, and then they get into an apartment and they see an object that reminds them of that event, and that brings them right back to that trauma. Sometimes it's smell. Sometimes the smell can bring them back to the traumatic event. So when veterans try to find help, the bureaucracy can be way too complicated for them to get help. I would also add that when veterans, whether they are retired or left due to health issues or other reasons, when they ask for help, they need the help right away. If it takes too long, we lose track of them and they end up having worse issues. Sometimes we have a hard time tracking them down again. Sometimes they take their own lives. So sometimes we are told that the families found the situation way too difficult and it leads to separations. So problems end up snowballing instead of going in the right direction. So on that side, it can be quite difficult. So the veteran, well, as I said earlier, I work with homeless people. So the veterans that I meet on the street, often they have problems with substance use. And why do they get there? Through discussions, we find out what happened in the past, things that led them to that road. If there had been more understanding, more comprehension when they had left the service, maybe there would have been less negative effects and maybe they could have gotten help sooner. But when we try to help them, here's an example. There was a veteran who was on a mission once. I am not a professional when it comes to evaluating them, but he was on a mission. And he did a lot of things when he was on that mission. He asked for help, and he was in an office somewhere, and that lady was making things complicated for him. So he got angry and he got aggressive. So he gave up and he left. Eventually, we found out that he wanted to end his life, and from what I heard recently, he may have successfully he may have ended his life. So this is what's happening to people who are seeking help. So if I understand properly, people are not getting services in their language. There are many complications to that end. If they want services in their language, we really have to push. Sometimes they just get told no. So it's complicated. Yes, so it's harder, it's more complicated.
It gets too complicated for 2 or 3 requests, and you got to prove that you don't speak English. Make a fool of yourself. Another thing that I find completely unacceptable is the lag time in all of this. That people wait so long that they get discouraged and they end up homeless.
Mr. Lavallee, if you can finish your thought, but that's time. Go ahead, sir.
Well, to come back to Mr. Désilet's question, if there's too long a long time to wait, the individual gives up and he walks out the door and he goes into a survival mode. It's easier for him to live that way than to try to get help and get back into the system, so to speak.
To MP Blaney, please.
Well, thank you so much, Chair, and I want to thank all the people that are here today testifying on this very important issue of discussing caregivers and the important role that they play in supporting veterans. And, we've heard from other witnesses about the challenges that caregivers are facing in accessing resources and the harm that it can have on the veteran if the appropriate resources are not put in place for the family. So I'm just wondering if I could start with either Ms. Maletti or Ms. McLeod, whichever one or both of you, and I hope I got your names right? I'm just curious about what kind of efforts do you see within the people that you serve around supporting the caregivers, and where are the blocks and the challenges that families and caregivers are facing in accessing supports from VAC? We've heard from several witnesses that this is often one of the biggest challenges. And I think, Ms. McLeod, you told a very good story about, a horrifying story really, about what happens to family and what happens to veterans when the caregiver's health is got a severe challenge. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about what are those blocks and what do you see as the impacts on the family directly when VAC isn't able to assist not only the veteran, but the caregiver of the veteran?
Jeanette, do you want me to go?
Yes, please. Thank
okay.
you.
When I'm not able to support my veteran, it becomes chaos. We do have 2 little children, 8 and 11. The blocks for us are going back and forth from Blue Cross to VAC, to Blue Cross to VAC. And one will say something and the other hand will say another thing. I'll give you a straight example. My son has ADHD that affects greatly the behavior of my husband. It triggers him quite a lot. We requested help from VAC. VAC approved the psychological support. I have to prove that my husband, it affects him, to Blue Cross to get the support. So it's running from one part of bureaucracy to another and ping-ponging itself between back and forth. VAC says yes, doesn't relay the information. Blue Cross requests a letter from a psychologist. Now, mind you, a couple of weeks ago, we were in crisis here. My son is very combative. He's very hard on us. I'm a full-time nurse in a COVID situation. I work red units. I didn't have time to run after a psychologist to get a letter to be approved that it triggers my husband when my 8-year-old screams nonstop. So that itself puts a lot of strain on a couple, puts a lot of stress on us to the point where we say, well, is this worth it? Should I stay here and live all that stress all the time? And on the children, it's very hard also when their father is not able to, to play with them, to cope with them, to help with schoolwork. It just, drags an entire family down. Jeanette, do you want to add anything?
I think you've really covered it, Marie. I think that's a lot of what we needed to say there.
Thank you. So I really appreciate what you said about having to prove to VAC and then having to reprove to the Blue Cross. So would you say that there's a challenge in the communication structure between those two entities, and the person that's paying for it is the veteran and the family?
It's a huge challenge, and I'm well versed into that world because I'm a nurse and I've worked, I know how they work. But someone that doesn't do that for a living will just abandon, and then we'll go into full crisis mode and just, like anybody else has testified, we'll end up in the streets, because they won't, or in the hospital or in jail, because it's lacking of support. You cannot ask someone with, and that's something that I've always said, you cannot ask someone with mental issues, psychiatric issues, to navigate VAC. You cannot do that. It's my husband forgets chicken fingers in the oven. Do you think he's going to, and burns it? Do you think he's going to be able to manage all that paperwork? Never. Without anybody's help, he's never going to be able to do it.
So you spoke really clearly about the impacts on children, and we definitely heard that in the Veterans Ombudsperson report, where she talked about what she was seeing and some of the studies that they were doing when the supports weren't there for the family, and then the breakdown of the family. So I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the impacts on children within your own life, but if you've heard anything from other veterans as well, and what stressors seem to be consistent.
On our end, My husband's still very militarized with the children. It's either black and white, and with children, you cannot do that. It has to be gray sometimes. And just that component has to be addressed in therapy, and it has to be addressed in couples therapy also, because sometimes we'll fight about it. And the children sometimes will be stressed about this because his expectations are very, very militarized, very high. Whether they're children, they have to, get a break sometimes. It's most of the time it's fine, but it's those days where my husband hasn't been sleeping, when he's been having like a strain of nightmares, where, then during those days it becomes, nightmarish here, because try to keep an ADHD boy quiet.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt, but that is past time. The witnesses will slowly realize that my job tends to be as chief interrupter, so I do apologize in advance. Up next, we have MP Doherty for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to take a real brief moment to say thank you to our witnesses today. From the moment I was elected in 2015, I've been a tireless champion in terms of our frontline heroes, those who serve our country and our communities and their families. Far too often, the families are left behind to pick up the pieces. And I just want to say thank you to all who are here today. With respect to Veterans Affairs Canada, the Mental Health Assistance Service, according to the Office of the Veterans Ombudsman, the low participation rate of family members is because, quote, this service is an important element in providing short-term counseling for a defined issue as well as crisis intervention, but it is unable to provide mental health diagnosis or address the long-term mental health needs of family members of veterans. To our caregivers, in your view, is this the case, and why is there such a low participation rate in this program? Ms. Millette? I think it's exactly what you just said. All of how frustrating it is. Correct.
That's what it is. It becomes, I try to, we have to work for a living. I don't have time to wait and call and just, just run after people and run after letters and run after, and it's just, it's
okay. That leads me to my next question. Back in May of 2016, then director of the brigade, Kimberly Davis, testified before this very committee and said, quote, the answer to the question of whether there have been any changes with regard to improvements in paperwork is no. Even though the number of pages in the paperwork has been reduced, the process of completing the paperwork is still challenging, end quote. 5 years later, have there been any changes with regard to the improvements in the paperwork?
I would not really. Right. Not really. It's still, even though there's the MyVac account platform, you still have to submit forms after forms, and everything is siloed, right? So a veteran is not considered a whole person. It's a back issue, a knee issue, a PTSD issue, and each component has their different set of paperwork that needs to be filled out, which is, in French, there's a French movie called Astérix and Obélix, and it's, les 12 travaux, and that's what it is. It's just mind blowing about how much paperwork and stuff you have to write down, and you get 3 lines to describe,
And sadly, each time they have to relive those experiences.
Absolutely.
Mr. Lavalley and Mr. Cameron, I really appreciate the work that you do with our veterans and those that are on the street. We know a high percentage of homeless are actually veterans. How can we better serve them?
That's a good question. Thank you for the question. I think keeping track of releasing members from the military is a great way. I've been out I've been out, 15 years now, and I never had one phone call or, how you doing? I know you did 26 years, and some of it was pretty crappy conditions, North Atlantic and boiler rooms and engine rooms, and we just wanted to know how you're doing. That never happened. But I don't expect it. But if you're leaving the forces with potential mental health problems or physical problems, then they should be able to keep a number on you, keep track of you, and make sure that you're not falling through the cracks. Mr. Lavallee is pursuing the ones that fell through the cracks, the ones that are already on the street and don't have a lot of support. And my hat's off to you, sir. That's what needs to be done, if you ask me.
The mental health impact of the backlog, the growing backlog, how is that impacting our caregiver and their children?
Very, very quick response, please.
Ms. Millett?
When their father is not doing well, the kids are stressed out, and then we see physical signs of it. Tics, being nervous, repetitive questions. So it is my role as a mother to calm them down and calm him down and calm everything down. But, who calms me down? No one. No one.
Thank you. Thank you. That's time, Todd. Up next, we have MP Sampson, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to, first of all, wish all the women on here today, of course, and in the world, happy International Women's Day, and thanking them for their contribution. And it's our responsibility to continue to support them as they move forward, of course. I want to thank each and every one of you who, of the witnesses today, for your information. It's so important to our study, and thank you again for that information. I want to recognize, of course, Mr. Cameron and Mr. Lavallee for your service, and thank you for your service. And for those who are spouses of veterans, thank you for your service as well, because as we know, if a man or woman serve, of course, their family is serving as well. Mr. Cameron, I'd like to touch on, as you know, since 2015, we've had many new programs and benefits for veterans. For example, the pension, of course, the pension for life we brought in, the education program, the added resource center, the caregivers program, and others. My question is focused with you on awareness. How would you say that the veterans that you speak to, are they aware of these new programs? Are they having access to those programs? Is there something we could be doing better to make those individuals more aware of what's available to them, that it be mental health or whatnot? You're on mute, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Thank you. I do see progress. I do. Just recently, there was an email that came out, or my VAC account, and to order a book that had your name at the top of it, and it was going to explain services that were available to you. Seeing as I've been out 15 years, I pretty much know the services that I have, but people are getting out now and in the future, if they're made aware of that booklet that they can order specifically for them, that would help with the services. I've had a knee pension. I've been wearing a brace on my left knee for since 2004. I'm under the First Pension Act, and I receive a monthly payment for it. And just last month, I just finally became aware of a clothing allowance that I could ask for because my pants, sometimes if they're too tight, I got to cut them, or they wear out prematurely. So I have extra costs involved with being respectful and dressing properly. I just found this out last month. This is what I said to the lady at VAC. Why didn't somebody at VAC see that Mr. Cameron's wearing a brace? And I wonder if I see that he doesn't have that allowance. Well, maybe we should reach out to him and see if he needs that allowance. That's just a small example. That's a trivial example. based on some of the things that I've heard that veterans with claims are needing. So I guess to answer your question would be more reaching out from the department to making sure that they're taking care of the veteran after he's released and he's on his own.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. And quickly, just for our listeners and the participants today, thank you for your advocacy, of course, around the Nova Scotia announcement, of course, of not separating spouses in long-term care. That's a very, very important win. We hope this happens right across the country. Thank you for your advocacy on that one. A final question, Jeanette McLeod. You spoke about your work with volunteering for Vets Canada. Can you talk to us about some of your work you're doing? And I know it's so great, the stories we're hearing, how they're being so helpful, and maybe connecting that with homelessness would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, and good afternoon. So I have not been with Vets Canada for a long time, but I can briefly speak on some experiences in that. So with Vets Canada and that, there is an awful lot of homeless vets that we do have. With Vets Canada, it's not necessarily, someone who is homeless. It can be a veteran who is going through a hard time. It can be anywhere from, just needing a little bit of help with gas, with some groceries. And we cover a large variety of different things that Vets Canada does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know if you had more there, but that's unfortunately time. Up next, we have Député Desilets for 2.5 minutes, please.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2.5 minutes is very short. Mr. Lavallée. Could you tell me about what veterans and their families feel regarding the system, the red tape? And I have the same question to the other witnesses. Could you tell us about what you feel? Could you give us words to describe that? Well, I will not give you words because it could not be very nice. We're talking about people who feel discouraged because of this red tape. So sometimes there are some words we could use that are not very nice. But what I can tell you is the following. Sometimes they don't trust the system. They're having enough. They're fighting and fighting. Ms. Mallette earlier described the situation very well. She told us about what a family will feel. She told us about the red tape, that it's very complicated for families. And what's the impact of that? The impact on the family, on the children. So Ms. Mallette is still with her husband, but sometimes people will give up. People will separate because it's too complicated and they do not have access to help. Ms. McLeod earlier told us about veterans, homeless veterans that she meets. It's not only people who sleep in a box, it's people who have problems. With the veteran of the 22nd Regiment, we help veterans with financial problems. We help them with their groceries. So we are on the ground. Me, Ms. Mallette, Ms. McLeod, we all use the same language. So it's very complicated. We see that in different places. Ms. Mallette with her family, Ms. McLeod in her region, me in my region. But at the government, it's as if it's news. It shouldn't be like that. There should be a system, a crisis system. So when you find someone that's having difficulties, when you see a homeless person that has lots of problems, well, that person should be referred to a center and should be helped. so that that person heals. When we meet these people, there is a crisis. It's important to react right away. We have to give help to these people. We are on the ground.
Thank you. Thank you.
Merci.
Now over to MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Millette, if I could just come back to you. I heard two things fairly clearly from your testimony. One is that veterans and their families need better systems in VAC to actually maneuver it because they're long, complicated, and then if you bring in the Blue Cross, it adds another layer. So systems in place that would really support that. But the other thing that you said that really moved me was you sort of take care of everyone else, but who looks after the needs that you have. So I'm just wondering, what is the gap, do you believe, that is missing for the main caregivers?
The caregiver recognition benefit was meant for that. Unfortunately, caregivers cannot access, like me, cannot access it.
What's the barrier for you?
Because my husband is able to feed himself, dress himself, bathe, and the basic needs, but everything else relies on us, and we are not recognized as caregivers for that.
Okay, so it's the barrier around clarity that the mental health aspects take a lot of time and energy.
I've often said, sometimes it's not the money, sometimes it's a rent a husband kind of a service where, if somebody could come and help me do the basic renovations in a house that needs to be done, that would alleviate a lot of stress on me, because my husband with the mental health cannot do that. Sometimes he's just too tired. It's like a cell battery that's always drained. Mm-hmm. So we have to compose with that all the time.
Well said. Thank you. If I can come to you, Captain Cameron, thank you so much for your service. One of the things that I thought you articulated really well was the fact that you would like to see more of a reach out to veterans to support them rather than VAC waiting for veterans to reach out to them. So if you could just talk a little bit about what that might look like.
So you wanted me to explain.
Well, you talked about, not knowing about the clothing supports and those things. So really VAC having the knowledge of who the veteran is and reaching out to check in to see if there's a gap in their life and helping them fill it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the number one thing, to know where the veterans are at and keep a track of them. I know everybody's overworked and overtaxed with their duties, but I mean, you having people that served Canada and stand up for this government's mandate and do what they want them to do over and wherever they're doing it, and to sort of let them slip away after they release makes no sense. And I just wanted to say, and one of the things, we got these 13.5 million Canada Post free postcards to send to a buddy, but I'm sending mine to the CEO of Canada Post and asking why his to any Canadian soldier Christmas card is not really working, because they end up in a box and they go to Scarborough where they're destroyed because they're not addressed properly. So that program does not work, and it has mental health issues. You're sitting over in Afghanistan with no cards coming in. What's going through? How is that affecting you? It's affecting you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt again. Now over to MP Broussard for 5 minutes, please.
You're very good at that, Chair, interrupting, as you acknowledged earlier. So
it kills me, but I that's what I know. That's the role.
I want to go back. Thank you, Chair. I want to go back to Madame Millette because I was compelled by some information that you provided, particularly in the area of your husband's case, where he's able to do some things. We've heard stories from veterans who are over the 100% limit in terms of their disability. And yet, in one case in particular that I'm aware of, this veteran in particular has been denied 5 times the caregiver benefit, despite being over 100% disabled. So one of the challenges is that, and veterans oftentimes who are dealing with traumatic brain injuries, occupational stress illnesses, whatever the case, that gets them up to that level of disability, they're so bogged down in the paperwork that it's difficult for them to receive the benefit for their caregiver. So one of the suggestions that could come out of this, and I'm interested in your opinion on this, is whether in fact the caregiver, him or herself, should be the one applying for these benefits as opposed to the veteran directly with Veterans Affairs. I'm interested in your opinion on that, whether that would help or not.
Well, I can tell you that I'm the one that applies for my husband. So if he's denied, that means that I'm denied.
Okay.
Simple as that, because we're the one that's doing all the paperwork, right? That I sign my name at the bottom or his name at the bottom, it really doesn't make any difference because the language is still going to be there. The reason why we are denied, that my husband is denied all the time, is because he's physically capable of putting a spoon into his mouth. He's physically capable of, sorry my expression, but wiping his bum. He's physically capable of washing himself and putting a shirt over his head. That's why. Rest of it's.
See, that's what I find interesting. I would consider your husband to be partly disabled when we've got veterans who are over 100% disabled, yet they're being denied. It just, the disparity in both of those situations is something that I think we need to get down to the bottom of.
Reality is that, if I was not there, nothing would run properly, but it'd be able to put food in his mouth.
Right.
But who gets the food, right? Who does the laundry?
Right.
Who does all that? It's the caregivers. It's us.
Yeah.
But that's considered instrumental activities of daily living versus activities of daily living. And that's where the difference is.
Okay. So the other one, Mr. Cameron and Mr. Lavallee, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. As Shadow Minister for Veterans Affairs, I hear stories from right across the country of individual veterans and some of the people that they're associated with who are on the ground trying to help veterans as you do in your situations. In the last study we heard, a lot of the larger organizations receive government funding to do the work that they do. One of the things that we heard was, particularly from Persian Gulf vets, is they're doing a lot of that work as well, but they're not receiving anything. So quickly, can you tell me how you're funded to do the work that you do, if you are, and whether you would like to see some part of government funding going towards, I don't want to call them fringe organizations because you're doing great work, but organizations that may not otherwise be recognized by government. Mr. Cameron, I'll start with you quickly.
Well, it's more individual on my part. It's not really a group thing. Yes, I am part of a veterans group, and when I need a little bit of help promoting something, I'll ask my friends and members of the group, my brothers and sisters, to help me promote this. It's usually, if there's any cost involved, it's absorbed by our own paycheck. But really, it's mostly an individual effort, and it's not really an entity or a group or a thing. It's just mostly individual.
Oui, Monsieur Lavallee, s'il vous plaît.
Monsieur Lavallee.
Okay, excusez.
Sorry about that. Well, look, I'm in the trenches. I'm in the front lines. I'm with people who were with the 22nd, the Van Doos, and everybody gets problems occasionally, but we got together and we started a peer support group. We've made a request. I can't tell you exactly because Richard Gauthier is the fellow's name, and Mr. Desilets knows him. And he's the guy who takes care of all the red tape, the bureaucracy, the paperwork. And I know he made a request, but the processes were a little bit more lengthy. I can't tell you where he's at in the process. In the meantime, we're paying out of our pockets. We pass the hat. We give a few bucks here. Somebody needs help. We'll get together. We'll buy a gas card, or we'll go out and buy them groceries. But requests have been made, and I suppose that within the vets of the 22nd, we're going to be recognized by the government eventually.
Apologize. I keep interrupting you, sir. I apologize for that. I will now go over for 5 minutes to MP Lalonde, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Cameron, Monsieur Lavallée, for your service to Canada and certainly for your continued support to our veterans. C'est vraiment un plaisir de vous avoir.
It is a true pleasure to have you here today.
Our caregiver brigade, and that's maybe where my question will be focusing on. First, happy International Women's Day, but I want to spend some time with you today in terms of the fantastic work and that you've done in your organization in helping the caregivers and the families, and as you mentioned, navigate the complication and the complicated post-life services. And I know you've been focusing on PTSD. There's the Peer Support Network, Operational Stress Injury Social Support, OSISS, that was created to provide a similar service both for veterans as well as family, friends, and caregiver. While working alongside organizations like yours, I wanted to have your perspective as to when someone in your group goes to them, the OSISS, to help with a veteran who is not seeking treatment, what kind of guidance do they give, and have you find it to be effective?
I've never referred anyone. Oh, yes, maybe once. It was a really long time ago, and it's still, it was somebody that was still serving. They were very scared to talk because the people within the CAF were like bosses higher ranked than them were actually trying to know what was being said. So basically, that was the message that we got back. In terms of peer support, never used, never. You have to understand at Caregivers Brigade, we're not really in touch with people. We're just sending out the information there. So
on your website.
We have to save ourselves before we save others, unfortunately. If somebody comes at us, yes, we will try to guide them as much as we can. But as per OSIS, my experience was that with them. Maybe Jeanette and Paula want to add. I think Paula maybe had some info, but not to my knowledge. I don't know.
Paula, you want to go ahead on this, please?
Sure. Do you mind me? Okay. When it comes to the Caregivers Brigade, what we do is not peer support. We're there to help with we're more or less a third-party referral service. So we know of organizations like OSIS, and we can tell people what they do, but it's their choice. Like we know from our own experiences that it's very individual of what kind of services a family is going to access. So if I might need OSIS or Jeanette or Marie, but that doesn't mean that it's accepted that all three of us should need it. And it's the same with the people that we serve. We know that all families are very individual, and they are using our website to see what services are available, and they can email us and ask us about specific services because we have some knowledge and connections there, but we don't tell people what they should be accessing.
Okay, so in your opinion, as we are looking at recommendation, what would it be what would you recommend us in terms of helping this process to be easier on the caregiver and our veterans in terms of that navigation piece?
I would say just one pit stop do everything, click all that you need there, answer all the questions. I would say consider a veteran and its family as an entity, the veteran as a whole person, not just conditions. Just being that, just doing that, you'll eliminate a whackload of paperwork and questions. Example, sleep apnea is a comorbidity of PTSD. My husband has to apply for sleep apnea to get all that needs to be, that he needs for his sleep apnea. It is considered a comorbidity. It means that they walk hand in hand, but it's considered alone in my husband's, so it's just mind blowing when you have to apply and follow up each request. You spend it's just crazy. You can't do that all the time.
So basically, the consolidation.
I'm sorry, I gotta cut you off there.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Now over to MP Wagentall for 5 minutes.
Two screens going here. Thank you very much. In what you were just saying about the complications and applying for things, I had a chat with you folks earlier from the brigade, and I don't remember who it was that talked about applying to get a shower for their husband.
Me.
It was you. Okay. This just, it's just one more story, but it just says so clearly. So if you could just briefly tell us about the dynamics around that issue with back.
My husband's 6'4", 200 pounds, and when his back gives way, he cannot shower himself. And we had a 32 by 32 shower. Apply for VAC, do all the process. Occupational therapist comes home, evaluates everything. We get a nice 40 by 40 walk-in shower with a 3-inch ledge. That means that water, when it hits, because it's not deep enough, it splashes out. We have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. It just looks like the water park after they shower in our bathroom. When I asked, I said, can we put a shower door to eliminate that? No, the shower is made for the veteran, and the veteran can shower with a shower curtain. We were denied. They built a $9,000 shower in their bathroom, but we have to have a shower curtain because that was built for the veteran and not for us. And that puts more strain on us because each night I have to mop and clean an entire bathroom each time.
Okay. So just another one of those examples where it's so frustrating when they say that the family serves, the veteran serves, the family serves with. Can you talk just very briefly, and the other gals as well, the term the war at home is something that you as the Caregivers Brigade uses. Can you each just define that a little bit for us today? What does that mean?
It's constantly fighting, and war in Afghanistan has its stop in my husband's head. So at night when he has nightmares, I'm the one that's sitting in the tank next to him.
Okay. Jeanette?
A little bit that I would like to add to that too is, as Marie was saying, when we use the war at home, the words do say it all. They brought the war home with them. And we're living it with them every day.
Paula, what about family? What about the children?
I will let my colleague Marie, I think this is a good area for you to touch.
There you go.
The kids they know that daddy went to war, but they know that he's, ran after bad guys because we're in a superhero world here. But they do, and they had to be accustomed to the fact that daddy cannot be scared. You cannot jump on daddy. You cannot scream loud when daddy's around. You cannot, like, the children have been accustomed to that. It's how they were brought up. but it is very difficult on them sometimes.
Okay. All right. Another question, Paula, your work is around serving families. The term serving families means the veteran and the entire family, and the impact with D&D policies, transition services, that type of thing. What kind of impact do you have there? Are you involved with D&D? Is this something that they come to you and ask questions about? What works, what doesn't work? Are you part of the advisory council?
Est-ce que vous faites part d'un conseil consultatif ou quoi au juste?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I actually sit on a feedback team for military families that I meet with once a week, and we discuss different things that affect military families. But outside of that, within the Caregivers Brigade, it's more about addressing, or at least bringing to military leadership, ideas about improving services and how to help people that are members that are going to be releasing, to get them connected with VAC services before they're released, so that they don't have that experience of a gap in their treatments, or like if they're injured in service, they're receiving every kind of treatment known to man and while they're serving, but when they release, they are not guaranteed to get those treatments and medications covered until they're covered with VAC.
Yeah. Okay. And so that's been an issue ongoing. I mean, they call it the seamless transition that we're working towards, but this has been ongoing for over a decade of not being able to transition from one to the next. Oh, my chair is interrupting me.
Sorry, I am.
No.
And I do apologize, guys. I know we had talked earlier about extending, and I want to first apologize to MP Desilets. I've had in the last 10 minutes, more than a few of us here on this call have extended to me that they can't go beyond the 5:30. So I'm going to have to stick to that. Now, Monsieur Desilets, I recognize that you may have wanted to move your motions today. And as an olive branch to you, what I would like to suggest to my colleagues here is that we start Wednesday's meeting in public to give MP Desilets, or anybody for that matter, to move their prospective motions before we go in camera to do the report writing, which we are scheduled to do. I apologize, but we have quite a few on this call right now have got to jump onto other committee meetings. So if it was just one person, I think we'd continue moving forward, but that unfortunately is not the case. MP Desilets, are you okay with that?
On va vivre avec, Monsieur le Président. C'est très...
We'll live with it, Mr. Chair. You've made every effort possible, and it's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. And for the witnesses, I absolutely applaud your patience. And we got to go in a little bit late today, but I do appreciate all of the contributions that you've made here today. This is a very important topic, and your testimony will be very valuable for us moving forward. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to my colleagues and all of the folks back in Ottawa that is making us all being heard and seen possible. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I adjourn the meeting.
Merci beaucoup.